This is Frontier Opening Bell, and I'm Temple Ashajo. We've got Bosin Omofaye joining us to do some analysis on our headlines that we'll be looking at this morning. But before we do that, let's check out how the market started off with the week. We had the Nigerian exchange negative yesterday by some 10 basis points. On Monday, that was at 38,686.40. The BRVM stock exchange opened the week positive by some 0.70% positive. That's on Monday. The Egyptian stock exchange was negative, started the week a slow start, 0.17%, and the Nairobi Securities Exchange was positive by some 18 basis points. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange also went southward, rising, closing by 0.37% on Monday. Let's look at the Eastern African headlines, where we have Kenya Breweries planning $1 billion shillings additional line to make spirits. Safaricom plans to write off 1.5 billion shillings Telkom Airtel debts. Tanzania receives $140 million grants from AfDB as promised since last week. Mauritius EPRO, Mauritius EPRO Growth Fund declares Mauritian rupees for some 68 cents per share per dividend. Uganda cards transactions up by some 2.7% to 10.5 million. And of course, the value is a positive by 11.8% to 0.34 trillion shillings. These are heavy headlines from the eastern part of Africa. Boston, let's hear your thoughts on these headlines, please.
I'll start from the, thank you. Let me start from Tanzania, $140 million from AfDB. Remember this, the transition with the death of President John Magufuli a few months ago, just about 3-4 months ago. Then the vice president, there was a smooth political transition, which was a good example for us in Africa. And I think maybe a few issues within Tanzania that's not known to the rest of the world, but they were able to move on very swiftly without the political class rocking the boat, as it were. So the new helmsman, who is a woman, by the way, the woman, the female president, is moving on. So the AfDB, this is a show of confidence, $140 million of support for the administration in Arusha and Dar es Salaam. So I think it's good news for them. By the way, I love that. I think I will I would like Ali to speak to the breweries thing. I know what folks say that they're drinking nice things, but Safaricom for giving 1.5 billion shillings. That's a big brother to Telkom and Airtel. So look, you use our facilities, you can't pay. We're just gonna look. Safaricom is as big as many banks, as you want to put it, in Kenya and elsewhere. So I think I'm always proud of this company, by the way, Safaricom, that is. The EPRO Growth Fund in Mauritius, the earnings season is just here, by the way. So let's give it to them. If you have 0.8 Mauritius rupee and you have sold some shares, I think you can use some extra free money by now, Tempo. I can. I don't mind.
Well, thank you, Bosun, for those. Ali Kansacho, the founder of Rich Franchise Management in Kenya, just joins us now. Thank you, Ali, for coming through. Good morning. You got the headlines to serve this morning.
Yes, thank you. Kenya Breweries obviously had quite a tough time during that pandemic year last year. And it remains difficult because a lot of the bars and restaurants are under curfew at the moment. So it's been quite a struggle, but they've invested heavily in refreshing a lot of their outlets, assisting the managers of those outlets. And, you know, they've got a pretty solid balance sheet. They've got a pretty solid medium-term approach. And I think this is part of that, an additional line to make spirits. The spirits line, remember Kenya Breweries originally, interestingly, was a beer business. This is Kenya's Tusker Lager, which, you know, is an iconic brand. And it's, you know, majority shareholders, Diageo historically has not been a beer business, to be honest. So it's quite an interesting situation. But what they've been very successful with are their new spirits. They've brought in, they call it innovation, but they brought in a whole bunch of spirits at different price points, and they've done extremely well. Partly, one of the reactions was they had a very cheap beer, which was very popular. I can't recall the name. And then the government slapped on some very heavy taxes, and a lot of people migrated away from that beer into these cheap spirits. And I think, you know, with Kenya Breweries backing it, you knew you were getting a quality product, and therefore they did very well. So I think that confirms to me that that spirit line, low price point, is working well for them.
Safaricom, Ali, if I may jump in there, sorry to jump in there, sorry, apologies, Tempo. So how does that play with East African Breweries, which looks like the bigger brewer? How are they going head to head with Kenya Breweries? Oftentimes you hear about East African Breweries Limited. I want to know about the beer war.
East African Breweries is the parent of Kenya Breweries. Kenya Breweries is owned by East African Breweries, where Diageo has a majority shareholding. So, but you know, the main engine is Kenya Breweries, although they acquired Serengeti in Tanzania, which is doing really well. They have Uganda Breweries as well. They have, they don't have proper brewing facilities, but they have outlets into South Sudan and DR Congo as well. But Kenya Breweries, I think, is still about 60% of the business, but the fastest growing piece is Serengeti. But this is all one family. They're not competing with each other. Just to jump to the other headlines, as you mentioned, Safaricom, well, they've got the muscle to write off 1.5 billion shillings, which is $15 million. Not many companies have that type of muscle. You already spoke about the AfDB backing the new president of Tanzania. Look, I think she's getting a lot of support from the multilaterals, from Pan-African businessmen like Dangote, who was as fulsome about her as I've ever heard him speak of any African leader, and others. And what has happened is I think people are just happy to deal with somebody who is not coming with the Magufuli baggage and issues about so many different kinds of things. And she seems to me to be extremely sensible, sharp, and quick and agile. She's gearing up the gas down in Mtwara. She's signaling to business she means business, and she's going to make it a level playing field. I saw that she's now getting the vaccines into Tanzania. All that COVID, Thabo Mbeki AIDS type legacy has been forgotten about. So really moving forward, I'm impressed. You know, I'm looking at that market. I saw some long dated bonds at 16, 17%. I thought that was pretty interesting, frankly. And then finally, Uganda card transactions plus 2.7%. The only issue I've got in Uganda is you've got a surging COVID. Test positivity is ranging between 17 and 18%. You know, we just don't test enough, so you've got to just look at that test positivity. And of course, we don't know who they're sampling. Are they all ill people turning up at the hospital, or are they doing general sampling? But 17 or 18% is high. The economy contracted last year. They've introduced a hard lockdown as of yesterday. So we've got to watch and see how Uganda navigates its way through the third wave. I'm very concerned about the third wave hitting Africa. I'm seeing it spike all over the place. I mean, Namibia's at a record now. Eritrea is at a record. Uganda's up there, highest it's ever been. South Africa is surging. So we've got a very big problem. Hardly any of us are vaccinated, frankly. Here in Kenya, they've vaccinated up to the 58-year-olds. And now people are looking for the second vaccination. But this is a drop in the ocean. So big concerns about what's happening on that front.
Thank you very much, Ali, for all of this analysis. Really appreciated. We'll move on down to the Western African and Nigerian markets headlines, where EcoBank plans $300 million fixed rates reset Tier 2 sustainability notes. The Central Bank of Nigeria moved towards FX rate convergence. It's a positive one, says FSDH, Merchant Bank in Nigeria. Axa Mansard forecast 16.19 billion naira claim payout in the third quarter of this year. Bank of Ghana sets to float digital currency, which is called the e-cedi. And then in Togo's budget deficit widens to 7% of GDP in the year 2020. Let's hear your thoughts first, Bosin, and possibly get that of Ali.
Well, I think I will speak with Togo's budget deficit. We all knew how last year was. There was a whole lot of hard lockdown. Nigeria locked these borders for quite some time before it was partially reopened. Togo was one of the gateway to get into Nigeria, imported and partly smuggled goods and what have you. So I think that's a whole lot of, they had a trade deficit last year with Nigeria tightening the firewall across the land borders. That is somewhat expected because that's the largest market for Togo to target. Very easy market, the routes are already there. The southern part of Togo had always been the gateway through its seaports and airports, as it were. So if you want to get into Nigeria, you're not going all the way up north to go to the landlocked area. You come to Lagos, Idiroko, whatever, Badagry access. So that goes for that. ETI is a big story with $300 million $300 million sustainability bond. That's good news, considering that the whole conversation around the world is about sustainability, financing and ethical financing out there, the whole ESG, climate adaptation, biodiversity, for agriculture, for climate, for fossil fuel and what have you. So if you're doing anything on sustainability now, you're likely going to get the ears of international investors. That is one. Then if you talk about the Axa Mansard, our third quarter earnings, I think forecast, I think that is good. That's the way to go as a listed company or an issuer. You give enough forecast ahead of time. Analysts and investors can plan. Anyone who wants to get in or out can make their permutations on your stock. And I think that's one thing that Axa Mansard, a big name in insurance, has done. Well, let's weigh in on this digital coin that the Bank of Ghana wants to do. I think the Ghanaians are up to something here. I think it's the El Salvadorians that says, well, it was all over CNN and everywhere yesterday. Then suddenly I heard overnight that the Ghanaians want to do an e-cedi. What's going on? Anyone has an idea? I don't have any idea.
Well, yes.
Sorry, just to come back to what Temple was saying. I was watching this conference, Bitcoin conference over the weekend in Miami, and it had a level of insanity I've never seen before in what is supposedly a financial investor conference. I don't know if you saw Max Kaiser, who started tearing up the dollar, the rand, and saying this is what's going to happen to your currency, it's going to zero. And, you know, it made me feel like if there's a top coming in the cryptocurrency markets, maybe that weekend was it. Then you had that announcement about El Salvador making Bitcoin legal tender and everyone getting terribly excited. I mean, you know, El Salvador is an outlier when it comes to governance, when it comes to the situation in El Salvador. I mean, you know, everybody's thinking like, you know, he's the Pied Piper. Have you seen what's going on in El Salvador? So when I think of that, then I come to the Bank of Ghana. I think the Bank of Ghana looks to me like the most sensible option when I compare El Salvador and those characters in Miami. So I think, you know, look, if they come up with a digital currency backed by the central bank, which is working, who knows? I think, you know, they're really trying to innovate, and I, for one, am not going to criticize them. I think, you know, at least they're trying, which is something more than most of our policymakers around the continent. If I can just touch on a couple of other moves, other points in your headlines. Obviously, there seems to be some concern, if I go by the number of tweets, obviously down because of what's going on in Nigeria, but about the currency, there seems to be a lot of concern now. That this convergence process might not be as orderly as the central bank governor Emefiele might desire. So we need to keep an eye on what's happening on the black market. You guys, I'm sure Burson has a good idea. You know, how far over 500? I don't know. Is there enough supply? It would be good to know. And then just to touch on the $300 million EcoBank fixed rate tier 2 sustainability notes. You know, EcoBank is one of those banks that went Pan-African before it became fashionable. And I think, they're going to reap a reward for being an early mover. And, the scale of that speaks to their ability to operate at scale across the continent.
Thank you very much, Ali. Southern African markets, where Thungela Resources shares starts trading on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and, of course, London Stock Exchange. MultiChoice sees full year profits to jump between 30% and 45% on organic basis. New Frontier Props gets okay to further delay earnings release. Namibia's bank, Windec, lists first sustainability bond. Edgar Stores revenues falls by 23% to 2.1 billion Zimbabwean dollars in the full year 2021, as a lot of corporate earnings continue to trickle in. Let's hear your thoughts, Ali, on these headlines, and then Bosun.
Okay, so let me pick on MultiChoice. I mean, a lot of people thought MultiChoice was going to be like Voice on the mobile phone, dead and buried, and they were pronouncing the last rites. But I mean, they're up 30 to 45% on an organic basis. That's pretty impressive. It'll be interesting to dive deeper into those numbers. I suppose I have to think it's all about the football franchise, that their ability to grow the businesses by retaining, all of us Africans, east to west, north to south. We love our football, and I think that's one of the very sticky offerings that MultiChoice is able to put forward. If I can just touch on one other story I was looking at, again referring to the rand, around 13.44, and what is incredible I saw is that they've really suppressed their imports and their exports are absolutely flying. And when I looked into what are the exports doing, it's minerals and agri. And because they haven't got any tourism going on, right? They've been out of the tourism game for quite a few months now. So it's pretty impressive to me, and should continue to support the rand, I think, going forward.
Thank you very much, Ali. Bosun, let's hear your take.
I think I like the MultiChoice story. Nigeria is one of the largest markets for MultiChoice and the big DSTV, by the way. So we'll see how the various regions in Africa will contribute to this earnings forecast that for full year that MultiChoice Group is pushing out. I like the Namibian bank story about listing sustainability bond, and we're just talking about the EcoBank Transnational Incorporated doing a $300 million sustainability tier 2 bond. And this is here where we are in Namibia. Look, if you want to go right now, you go to the sustainability bond, you go to the sustainability reporting has become such a big issue now and being well held by various exchanges, Nigerian exchange. I know the Nairobi boss also focus on sustainability reporting. If you're on the GSC, your sustainability report has to come as fast, as quick, and has to be on the ground for investors and everyone to consider. That looks like very good news to me, Tempo.
Many thanks, Bosun. Thank you so much. Let's move on to the Northern African markets headlines, where Afreximbank pumps in $600 million into Egypt's United Bank for financing SMEs. Emirates advanced investment bids to buy 100% stake of Alex NMC. Sodiq reports consolidated net profits of 100 million Egyptian pounds in the first quarter of this year. Cleopatra Hospital first quarter earnings out, 23% rise to 101.3 million Egyptian pounds in profit after tax. And Mutandis buys 100% stake of US-based seasoned brand for 400 million dirhams. There's a whole lot that the Afreximbank has been doing in terms of money, lending, and all of that. Ali, let's get your take on these headlines here.
Well, I mean, my take is, first of all, okay, Afreximbank, I believe, has its headquarters in Cairo, so probably, it doesn't take much for Sisi to go and knock on Benedict's door and say, I can do with some cash. But, $600 million, again, speaks to the absorption capacity of Egypt, right? I mean, I've never seen a $600 million ticket written to one bank in Kenya or East Africa. Its tickets are 50 million to 100 million max. Maybe equity takes 100 million. So this is a significant amount of cash. It is a significant commitment. And again, it speaks to what we've spoken about severally about Egypt having a very functioning and sophisticated financial markets which is able to deploy these kind of funds. I'll just finally touch on your Cleopatra Hospital number. I mean, you know, it's quite interesting. I was talking to one of the MDs at Stanbic, and I was asking, you know, what areas of the economy are outperforming. And, you know, he was talking about the sort of medical area, naturally, given the virus and so forth. But the nuances are hospitals initially didn't do so well because people didn't want to go to the hospital in case they were going to get COVID. But so that's a pretty interesting performance. When pharmacies were doing extremely well, he mentioned, saying that people are kind of self-medicating, which might not be a good thing, but saying, you know, that demand for pharmaceuticals had gone up considerably. So it's an interesting space and a lot of capital being deployed all around the continent, I think.
Thank you so much, Ali. Bosun?
Just to support a few things around the Afreximbank and United Bank in Egypt being supported by 600. Look, this is a whole lot of money. And for financing SMEs, I think I love the AfDB and Afreximbank and a few of their agencies, subsidiaries, trying to support. Look, you're not going to do the whole AFCFTA if you're not pumping funds into the SMEs across the various corridors. And Egypt, being a major industrial hub on the continent, entirely speaking, with their neighbors, the Moroccans, just next door, if you're funding SMEs in Egypt, you're providing a whole lot of fossil fuel to those who are the bigger industries. You're creating jobs. You're helping Egypt to increase its exports to Europe, to Middle East, and elsewhere around the world, and down to the rest of Africa. So I think that is good enough. So let me leave it there. And I love the Cleopatra Hospital. I love the medical, the pharmaceutical, the drug making for medicines, or calling medicals and all of that in North Africa. I think it is good news. We need to see a bit more of that in Nigeria, to have a bit more of the private hospitals that are big names, that are charges millions and millions in fees and medical fees. List on the various exchanges, come to the market. I'm happy that recently we've had about 2 pharmaceuticals, non-listed pharmaceuticals, come to the markets to do bond. If that is the way to go, I love it. So that is it. Well, over time, they will become an issuer on the market, get quoted by the way. But then I think it's a step in the right direction, coming all the way through from this COVID-19 pandemic period. Thank you, Temple.
It only takes those kind of doctors that understand investments, economics, to be able to get their hospitals listed, actually. But thank you, gentlemen, for your analysis and insights on the program this morning. Ali Kansachi, I appreciate your rich analysis on the program. Thank you so much. He joined us from Nairobi, Kenya. Bosun Omofaye, Executive Editor here at Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you so much as well for editorial considerations. This has been the show this morning. Temple Ashaji is my name. We'll gather next time to see you. Bye for now.